So until now we have seen what Angular is and how it works. Also we have seen what is a component. Today we will start with creating our first component for our poster application. By the end of this video you will be able to create a component manually with Angular CLI and with AI. So let's jump back into our VS Code. So you can create a component manually. As I mentioned earlier, a component is just a TypeScript class with @component decorator along with template URLs and style URLs. Okay, so let's create a component manually. I'll go into the app folder. Okay, here I'll create a TypeScript class, or I'll create a folder named header, because this will be the part of our poster application. So in the header I'll create another ts file which is known as header.ts. Okay, so one thing to note here is that in the earlier versions of Angular we used to have a .component.ts extension added. Okay, but in the latest version of Angular, that is version 20, this .component.ts is omitted and we only have the ts. Okay, so now our ts file is created. Okay, we will create a TypeScript class. So I'll export class header. Okay, so this is our class, and I'll just add that component decorator over here. So component should be imported from the @Angular core. Okay, now we have added the add component decorator. We need to have, as I mentioned in our earlier lectures, a component should have a selector. Okay, which is a unique name for a component. So I'll add a selector over here and name it app/header. Okay, so here as you can see, the app-header is the name of is the selector of this component. Why am I appending the app? Because this is an application component. So whenever you use this selector in your parent component or anywhere in your application, you can easily identify in your DOM or in your browser that this is a component, this is a custom component created by the user, or this is an Angular component, because the selectors are same as the other DOM elements, right? So if you use a div or a span tag or a image tag, right? So those are also added into a DOM. So to differentiate between these DOM elements with our custom components, we are using this app-header. Okay, so now we have added the header. What we need next, we need a template. Okay, so I can use the template or a template URL. Template means we can use an inline HTML elements over here, or template URL we can use a different file named header.html, and we can add it over here. We can add that path over here in the template URL. So I'll go with the template URL. Okay, and I'll create the header.html. Okay, so I'll create /header.html. Okay, now I added the template. Now I should add the styles. So styles, as I mentioned earlier in our previous lectures, that style URL or style are the styles that should be applied into this component, into this header component. So this will have a separation of concern with other components or with other parts of the applications. So styles can be added using three types. For example, we can use the styles using the styles, or styles means we can use the styles in inline over here only, or we can use the style URL where we can pass a single file URL, external file URL, or we can use the style URLs where we can pass multiple style URLs over here. because a component can have multiple style URLs. Okay, so I'll go with the style URL over here, and I'll add the header.scss file. Okay, so now we have the header.scss file and header.html to be created. Okay, so I'll go ahead over here and create the header.html file. Okay, over here I will simply say that header component created. All right, so our header component created is the message that we have added into the header.html. Now when we'll see, we can see that header.html is being showing and over here, yeah, right? So now if I use the header.scss file, I'll go ahead and create the header.scss file. Header dot Okay, the header.scss file is also created. So now as you can see, the errors are gone. So now our component is created, right? Now how to use this component? So I'll go ahead in copy this selector over here. Okay, and I'll go to the app.html. Okay, where we have this existing code that is coming from the Angular. Okay, so I think I'll remove all of this from here, and I'll just use my selector. Okay, this selector, that means I am using, I want to I want to show the header component text over here. Okay, into my app.html, and app.html is the default component or the root component that is loaded in the browser. Okay, so to use the app.header or to use this app header component, I first need to import it into the app.ts file. Okay, because this is a component, app component, and to use one component into another, you need to import that component into the other component where you are using the component that you want to use. Okay, so I have that added it over here. So header is added. Okay, now we can remove the router outlet. We are not using router outlet for now. We'll see the routing sections in our upcoming videos. Okay, so we'll save all of this, and now if I go ahead into the terminal and try to run our development server. Okay, so I'll just do npm start. Okay, so now it will start building our application, and we can directly go into the browser and see what's being loaded into the browser that we are loading in our app component. So let's go ahead into our browser. So now we are into our browser, and we are into this URL localhost:4200. So we can see that header component created is being shown over here. Okay, so now we have created our first component manually, but this is quite cumbersome, right? You cannot create multiple, because an application can have multiple components, right? So a complex or enterprise level application can have multiple, a lot of components. So you cannot create a component manually, right? Because that will be very cumbersome to you. So to tackle this, Angular provides us the command where we can directly create a component using a single command. Okay, so let's just go ahead and remove the header folder from here. So that will also remove our header component and the ts and css and html files. So I'm still using the app.header over here, so let's remove that, and the imports from the app component. Okay, so I'll remove the import from here as well. Okay, so now our app component is clean. So let's create our first component using the Angular CLI. So to create a first component, you can use the command ng, where we are specifying to use the Angular CLI over here using the ng command, and then generate command. G is for generate. Okay, and then C is for the component. Okay, so this is how you create a component, or you can create a different other services from the Angular, for example services or directives or pipes. So you can run, you can type the whole command ng generate component. Okay, so this is how you can create a component, or you can directly use the short form site nggc and your component name, bro. So I'll pass the component name as header. Okay, so now it will go ahead and create a component named header over here. So now you can see a header component, a folder is created named header, and a header component is created over here, right? So it has created an extra, that is spec file. I think that is not needed for now. We'll go ahead in our upcoming lectures. Okay, so you can see the header component is created and the paragraph is also added over here, header works. And we also have the ts file where we have the selector, okay, the template url, the style url, okay, along with the template, the html and the styles for that css. Now let's go ahead and use this same app header created by the CLI. Okay, so I'll go ahead and use the app header from here. Okay, now once I have added the app header, okay, so this should be imported inside this ts file. Okay, so this is I'm using this in our root component, the app.html. So this should be also imported in the app.ts file. Okay, so the header component is imported over here. Okay, so now let's see what does the browser says when we go ahead into the browser. Let's see. So now you can see the header works is being shown over here. That means our component is created and is working correctly. Now let us see how you can create a component using AI. So for AI, I have installed Copilot, GitHub Copilot from the extensions. You can find it in the extensions library. Okay, and just go ahead into the extensions and search for the GitHub. Okay, so it will or you can also type GitHub Copilot, or this will show a list of Copilot extensions. So you can just install the one that is provided by the GitHub team. Okay, so once you have installed the GitHub Copilot extension into your VS Code, just go ahead and log in using your GitHub account. So once you are logged in, you can go ahead to the GitHub chat. Okay, so here I'll ask the GitHub Copilot for creating a component. I'll pass the instructions like this: create a component named post list, okay, with a property that will have a post list, okay, with a blank array or including a blank array. We will add the posts in our later videos. Okay, so this should create a post list component based on our requirement. Okay, I'll go ahead and press the enter. Okay, so this will start creating a folder in our application folder. Okay, and as you can see, it has created a post list component along with the post list html and the css file. Okay, so it's asking me whether we should keep this or we should undo these changes to add our own. So this has created, for example, post list html file, the css file and the ts file, right? But there are some limitations to it. For example, this is not using the latest features of Angular. For example, it should use the signal side, and it should also have a spec file created, right? We are not specified whether to create a spec file or not, but it should create a spec file, because that's the convention of creating a component when you use Angular CLI. Okay, so we need to provide some context to this Copilot chat or Copilot. where it will start creating our component based on the latest features, right? So we need to provide the instructions or the LLM instructions that it needs to be used in our Copilot chat. Okay, so for that, Angular team has created a comprehensive guide for us. So where we can find the set of rules or set of instructions that can be passed on to this GitHub Copilot chat or GitHub Copilot, agent. So there are also MCP servers that can be created using the Angular. You can go ahead and download the instructions from the angular.dev/ai /develop with AI. And from the rules file sections, you can download the instructions or the rules based on your IDE. Mine is video VS Code, so I'll download for the VS Code editor. So once downloaded from this rule set files, I can add those instruction rules in our VS Code. So let us undo these changes, whatever has been done earlier. So let's go ahead and click on the undo right now. So once I click on the undo, this will remove all the changes from these files. So I also needed to remove this folder which was created by this GitHub Copilot chat. So once removed, we can go ahead and paste our instructions from the one that we have downloaded from the Develop with AI website. Okay, so I have these instructions over here. So let's add these instructions. Uh, these instructions are right over here, and I will undo these changes from here. So this will restore the instructions file from here. Okay. So once instructions are restored, I will also create a MCP server. So you can go ahead in the VS Code. This mcp.json, this can be created, or you can download the mcp.json from the descriptions of this video. So once you have added this MCP instructions and the instructions coming from the Angular.CLI, so you can now go ahead and add this context to this Copilot chat. Okay, so I'll add this context to this Copilot chat over here. So I'll go ahead and click on this add context button over here. And once I click on this add context button, I can find the instructions from the files search. So this instruction.md is required. So I'll just click on that. So once we have added the instructions, now I will paste the same prompt that I have asked to this Copilot chat earlier. Okay, so I will paste the same prompt, create a component named post list with a property post list, including a blank array. Okay, now let us see what it does after having these instructions context. Okay, so this should create a component. Okay, so now as you can see, this is using the Angular 20 features because my component is, or my application is in Angular version 20. So this will start creating or start applying the features that were introduced in Angular 20. So as you can see in the postlist.ts file, it has used the chain detection because in the instructions it is mentioned that you always use the chain detection on push strategy. So it has used the chain detection on push strategy, and it is also using the signals, right? Because that was required, or that should be used in the latest Angular versions in order to have a better reactivity in your component. Okay, so this will also improve the performance optimization because it is using the best practices coming from the instructions files. Okay, so that is how we create a component using AI. So in our next video, we'll be adding the contents of the post list component. Also, if you want to follow along, you can just clone the repository that have been added into the description of this video. And remember, we'll be using AI to create our components because that will be quicker, and we'll be able to create the components and create the application faster.